Happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome to Afterthoughts, a podcast where we talk about our first and second impressions of movies, along with a related topic. My name is Joshua Kazemi, and I'm here with my co-host, Coleman Taylor.
That's me.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
What are you going to be for Halloween?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I don't even know. I mean, today is Halloween, so I probably should know, but...
You got to figure it out.
Figure it out real quick. At work, we're supposed to be Mario Kart people.
Oh.
So I might just use my Mario Kart costume, but we'll see.
Wait, what is your Mario Kart costume? That sounds like you have one ready to go.
I want to be Boo.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe I'll be Toad, because everyone knows Toad is the best Mario Kart ever, so...
Yeah, Toad is great. The fastest one.
What about you?
If I can pull this off today, it'd be great. It might be pretty difficult, but I thought it would be fun if I went. Yeah, I mean, it's fitting for this episode and for this period in American history. I would like to get like Captain America's shield that looks kind of grungy. You know, like maybe get like a one of those like toy sleds, those like circles, and then like paint it and make it look pretty bad. And then I'll try to get a Captain America outfit and just make it look kind of run down, right? And then I'll tell people make Captain America great again.
Oh my gosh. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know.
But
that's what I want to do.
I'm still down with shaving my head and tattooing Voldemort on the back of my head and then wearing a turban and being Quirrell, you know. Still haven't done that yet, so.
That's pretty good. You can practice your stutter.
Yeah. Professor Quill.
Well, so it's Halloween, but we did some Halloween stuff last week to make room for Captain America Civil War. Woo! In honor of Doctor Strange coming out this weekend.
Yeah, because we all love Marvel.
Yeah.
Woo.
All right. I'm almost afraid to do this.
I'm not. Let's charge forward.
I love this movie.
But that's so dumb, but let's go on
ahead.
anyway.
What was your first impression?
That it was good. Kind of like how I feel about all Marvel movies since the Avengers, except for Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy was fantastic. But ever since the Avengers, I've kind of felt they're still good movies, specifically action movies, but just kind of flatlining. Like, they're kind of all the same, you know. And one thing I put is I feel like Marvel has just kind of been pulling their punches lately. They don't hit as hard as they could. But that was my overall first impression. What about you?
I loved it.
Of course you did.
But I loved it in the sense that I accept it for its flaws.
That's not fair.
Like I acknowledge that it has flaws, and there were definitely things that, you know, once the dust sort of cleared and I thought about the movie, that there were definitely things that I was not okay with or just had concerns with. But overall, it's just like what I love about these movies is that they're continually so fun, and I really like seeing these characters together, and I feel like they treat the characters with respect. There are like things about the MCU that could be better, but considering what's out there in the world today, I think these are the best superhero movies we get, and I think they feel like they capture the essence of the fun of the comic books, and I'm all for it. So I walked out of my first viewing of this movie like pretty satisfied. It's not my favorite Marvel movie, but I really, really enjoyed it.
For me, it just like the action's still great, and if this was still phase 1, I think this would still be a great movie despite the like plot issues it still has even within this movie. But still, for what it is, if it was phase 1, I think I would like it much better. But since it's phase 2 already, I feel like we're still just very...
Phase 3.
Oh, gosh, it is phase 3.
Yeah, this is the beginning of phase 3.
Oh,
yeah.
I forgot about that. See, we're in so deep, but I feel like we're still so surface level. They're so... I don't know. Anytime there's, like, huge, big topics brought up, they kind of just scratch the surface a little bit and then kind of avoid it and just dive into a bunch of action, which is cool and it's fun. And they pull off the action and fun aspect really well. But then I feel like they don't go deeper than that. And since we're not in phase 1 anymore, you should go deeper. That was kind of my first impression.
Mm-hmm. So the Civil War comics were like the first set of comics that I read in high school. And that's what sort of introduced me into comic books. Other than like, watching all the comic book TV shows, the animated shows when I was a kid. Like that was my first introduction to the characters, but I never picked up a comic until high school, and it was the Civil War event. So I was excited because I really liked these comics are what introduced me into that world. So I was excited to hear that they were going to adapt it. But having read the comics, it was always my concern for this movie. How are they going to capture that entire comic book event, which I think was like a year long? How are they going to fit all that into one movie? So there was fear that it would be overstuffed, like Age of Ultron. It was kind of overstuffed, and there was fear that they were just going to like sort of have to cut out all of the interesting things that make that story cool. But I don't think it's very overstuffed. I think everybody fits in pretty well. There might be a couple people on the sidelines that feel like extra, but in a general sense, I feel like the movie fits together pretty well. But I do think they cut out a lot of what makes the story interesting, to the point where I feel like this movie isn't really even about a civil war. It's sort of they have a disagreement, and I really like all that stuff. I like when they're sitting in the room and they're discussing the Sokovia Accords. And I really loved hearing them talk about it and hearing all the different opinions that are legit to these characters. I think they would really have these different opinions. And I liked all that stuff, but that's not what the real movie is about. Like, even like Sam says it in the airport sequence, this is not the real fight. The airport sequence, which is one of the most fun parts of any superhero movie ever. He says that that's not the real fight. And it sort of takes any emotional weight out of that fight, because the real fight is in that third act when they go to find the other Winter Soldiers. So that was one of my big things. This isn't really a civil war. It's just marketed that way.
I wrote that down too. Not really a civil war. That's my note verbatim. And kind of what you were saying, you didn't feel it was overstuffed, and I feel the same way. And I feel it was understuffed. I feel like all the things that could have made it a cool Civil War movie were kind of just glossed over for the sake of the action, which, as you said, is a cool action sequence. The airport scene is really cool and fun to watch, and seeing Spider-Man in a Marvel movie was really cool finally. All of those things were there, but it kind of takes away from any kind of thinking or things that could have made these characters even stronger and just built them up even more, was sidelined for the action.
But that airport sequence, even though I think there is some emotional weight to it, there is a little bit of there is some emotional weight to it, but I think it largely is just this really fun set piece. And it's sort of like the MCU saying, look at what we've come to. Look at everything we've built. It's right here in this moment. It's every character that we have minus Thor and Hulk, and they're here and they're fighting, and it's fun. And I think it's awesome that while these characters are having this fight, they're still expressing who they are as characters. In the quips, in the things that they set out to do, you can see who these characters are. Like, especially like the introduction of Black Panther, the introduction of Spider-Man. Those characters they're participating in the airport sequence, but they're also introducing themselves as characters to these audiences. And I think they get it spot on. Like, everything I know about Black Panther and Spider-Man, it's present in their character introductions. I think they did a great job with that. And I like a lot that, unlike the last couple Marvel movies or even the last couple of superhero movies, this movie's set piece, this big set piece, it's not city collapsing, building collapsing stuff. It's just this really fun action sequence. And the stakes are within the personal stakes between the characters, and not, the world's not at stake. The outcome of this fight is not going to determine whether or not people live or die. It's just personal stakes between these characters. And I like that because it's different from the other Marvel movies, and I'm kind of sick of seeing buildings collapse. I want it to be something different. So I really appreciated that. And I thought, like you said, I thought Spider-Man was awesome. Really enjoyed seeing him. But I did feel like, is he really necessary? Because I remember the Russo brothers saying that they fought really hard to write a script with Spider-Man. That was plan A. He was never plan B, and there never was a plan B without Spider-Man. They always wanted to have him in this movie. But that always made me think he was going to be super necessary to this plot in the way that he is in the comics. Spider-Man plays such an interesting role in the Civil War comics, and he's really this linchpin between Iron Man and Captain America. So I was hoping for some sense of that. You know, obviously it's a huge arc for him in the comics, and they can't really do that in his first movie in the MCU. But I wanted him to play a necessary part where really he feels like he's just kind of tacked on for some added, like, fun.
So yeah, Spider-Man wasn't super necessary, but it kind of just felt like his introduction, and as well to get people into the movie. I think because as I was saying, even though this isn't phase 1, it's kind of like phase 1, like when you just introduce a new superhero among all these other superheroes we've had forever, they're obviously going to feel less integral, I guess. But I guess he didn't show up till halfway through the movie too, so he even feels like less integral than like Black Panther does. So that's true.
Yeah.
He kind of just feels like a filler. But I think he'll show up more.
Yeah.
But as far as the emotional part of the airport, it still doesn't feel as emotional as it could. I get what you're saying comparing it to other movies. It's not them just fighting this evil being, destroying like whole cities and things like that. That's true. And that's really cool. But at the same time, I feel like what's driving them to fight just wasn't super foundational before that. The two sides were chosen almost immediately, and they were just, even though they have that quick conversation, it's just such a quick conversation of, oh, we're on these two sides, now let's just fight about it the whole time. Instead of going into like this deep talking about it, and I don't know, they could have talked about it more, bigger ideas could have been brought up, but instead it's just like, here's our two sides, what we think, here's why real quick, and then let's go fight now for the rest of the movie about it, until that third act where it, in my opinion, devolves even more. But
yeah, no, I agree.
Because that was in my first impression too, is that I have never really cared about the relationship between Bucky and Captain America. I just don't that much.
I've heard so many people say that, and it bums me out because I genuinely do.
Why in this universe at least? If you put the comics aside, Bucky is like barely there at all.
Well, so I can speak more to this in my second impression because I think I thought about it more in that impression. But this to me it's a Captain America story, and it's part of the problem that I have with it. Civil War should be an Avengers movie. The Bucky plot. Yeah, and the Bucky part of this movie should be Captain America's third movie. So it feels like really this should be called like Captain America Bucky or whatever. and then you could have Civil War subplots.
Captain America,
the way that
bromance.
The way that it's engineered, I don't think quite works. Like I think if you watch the 3 Captain America movies and you edit out all the Civil War stuff and this is just the Bucky plot, it makes so much sense for Cap and his character. It really, really does. But because you see him in these Avengers movies without Bucky, there's so much screen time for Captain America without Bucky that I understand people are like, Bucky, he's barely even there. But if you were to only watch the Captain America trilogy, it is all about Captain America not feeling like he belongs anywhere. And so to flash forward the 80 years when he wakes up in the future and he has nothing left, to find out that Bucky is still around, it's the world to him. It's the only thing he has left. And I think he projects all of his longing, everything about his character, he projects onto Bucky. Bucky is this symbolic thing for Cap. And so I totally feel for him and for that. But in this movie, it's just like, is it a Civil War movie or is it a Bucky movie? And it tries to be both. Yeah. And I just don't. And for me, it succeeds as a Bucky movie, but clearly it doesn't for everyone. But for me, it also doesn't succeed as a Civil War movie. Because I mean, I mentioned this I wrote a review for the movie back when it came out, and I think like what makes Marvel so strong and successful is their commitment to making sure these franchises last long. So the good side of that is that means they hire amazing actors, great directors, good writers, great production staff, but it also means that they're so nervous about potentially ending one of these franchises. So this doesn't feel like it should. It feels like the beginning of Phase 3 instead of its own standalone movie. Like all of the stakes that this movie raises, we don't really deal with, and I'm assuming we're going to deal with them in the rest of Phase 3, but that should have happened in this movie. We should have felt it a little more in this movie. I have a lot to say about this movie.
Yeah, you do. Because I was going to get more into that in my second impression as well, but just how... Yeah, because if you took the Civil War part out, even the parts with Bucky still would have been shallow, but if you took the Civil War parts out, you could have added more to this movie to improve upon the relationship between Bucky and Rogers / Captain America. And it's just not there. Even, I get what you're saying, but that was last movie. That was the last Captain America movie. He found out Bucky's alive, and that's where the longing is. Now we need the actual relationship part between them two, and it wasn't there enough in this movie because there was so much Civil War going on.
Yeah, it's two movies. It's trying to be two movies.
I know. Sounds like another movie I know that came out this year that's a lot like it that I was going to bring up, but we can get to that.
Yeah, let's just move on to second impression.
Let's do it. You can go first this time. What was your second impression?
Okay, all right. Well, I still really enjoyed this movie. It's just there's something so satisfying to me about seeing these characters on screen. And I feel like none of the MCU movies are bad. And some are much better than others, and they vary, but none of them are bad. Like, each time that these guys bring an MCU movie forward, they're just like, they're so fun, and the characters are so rich. I think the strongest part of this movie is that they casted great actors to play all these great characters, and all those great characters are always present, and I feel like they're always well respected. And the thing that hurts them is some plot decisions or like lack of stakes is another thing that a lot of people bring up as a weak point for the MCU. And I get that to a certain degree, but I mean, I just watched this movie and I was like, yeah, I really enjoy seeing these characters interact. And I like that they've built up all this stuff to this moment. And to me, it's satisfying still, but all my previous issues are still present.
Yeah, for my second impression, it's pretty much still the same, but just the issues are even more present. So, like I said, if this was a Phase 1 movie, would have been fantastic. But since it's not a Phase 1 movie, it's just good. And like you said, It really has so much to do with the characters and how they're just well made and they fit together so well, and that is what really draws me to these movies and makes them fun. But if that's all they rely on from here going forward, it's just not going to be as good as it could be. Like, it's just going to keep getting less and less until they kind of like you were saying, raise the stakes, but also just make these characters go even deeper than they already are, instead of just saying at this like surface level. So, I mean, it mostly has to do with the Accords, and the Accords, like, being brought up at all. And then that's just kind of it. Like, they have they, like, bring up topics, but then don't really talk about those topics. For example, my biggest one is how Vision brings up that the Avengers, just them existing is, like, inciting challengers to come challenge them. And that's it about that line. And I thought that was such a cool topic, especially thinking of Ultron. All of that was completely the Avengers' fault. And they made Ultron, and then they had to fight it. And so that kind of goes into another argument I'll get into. But for now, just how Vision brings that up. But throughout the rest of the movie, everyone's like, we need to keep the Avengers together. As long as we're together, it doesn't matter how, right? As long as we do this. Literally no one says maybe the Avengers shouldn't exist. even though Vision brought up a very good point about how just them existing has brought in catastrophes at like a very high rate, and no one even thinks about that, or is like, they're just all selfish and like, oh no, the Avengers should keep existing. It's like, I wish someone had been like, maybe we shouldn't exist, and like talk about that and say, here's why the Avengers should exist, here's why they shouldn't, things like that. But it wasn't. It was just a bunch of topics brought up, and then they fight about them at a very shallow level, I guess.
Mm-hmm. In my second impression, I really felt like I could track Tony's arc a lot better this time around. Like, I was just paying more attention to all of the sort of little details about what he's doing and why he's doing it. And it seems like for all of these movies, Tony has always, like, once he sort of goes through his big character development in the first movie and he realizes, I need to make a change. What is my life about? What is my legacy? He's always tried in every one of these movies to do the right thing. He just sucks at it. He gets bogged down he gets in his own way. He feels like he's like a futurist. He feels like he needs to be responsible for seeing things before they happen and trying to outsmart everybody and everything. He can come up with a way to save everyone. And so when he doesn't, when he fails, he feels personally responsible. And especially in this last case, it's Ultron. He created Ultron. And he and Banner, they took the responsibility of saying, we have the time to try to do this. Let's do it. We're going to create Ultron. We're going to make an iron suit around the world. And so in this movie, it's like he's dealing with the weight of the responsibility of trying so hard but failing with Ultron, and the fact that he has hurt innocent people along the way. But he still, like, he says it in that boardroom with Cap, like, truth is, I don't want to stop. I have to keep going. It's like that says a lot about who he is, that he feels like Iron Man is who he is, and he can save everyone, so he wants to keep doing that, but he wants to try something different. He wants to be better at it, so he decides to sign the Accords. And I think it's fascinating that the guy from Iron Man 2, who went up in front of Congress and said, screw you, essentially, I'm going to privatize world peace, and it's just going to be me. But to see that guy go from Iron Man 2 to, now I'm going to sign this document and I'm going to agree to work with the UN, I think that's awesome. And I really enjoyed seeing Tony's growth. But then, like, that's what I want Civil War to be about. I want it to be, this is where I stand, this is where you stand, and terrible things are going to happen because two of the strongest people are at odds. But really what happens is they have that airport scene, and then Tony gets mad that his parents were killed by Bucky, and then it becomes that. Yeah. And that bums me out. I want it to just be Civil War or just be Bucky, but it's both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think there is really rich character stuff that's still, like, because it is in there in any degree, I like the movie a lot. I like seeing Tony's growth, and I like seeing Cap's growth. But I just feel like it's not super focused.
I don't know. But for me, it's also just been the same growth that's been happening movie after movie after movie. Tony's always trying to do the right thing and always failing. And again, does the same thing. It's just, I don't know. Seeing it over and over, it's kind of getting old at this point. Like, I don't know. It's just so hard. And he's so, I guess it's just because he's such an emotional character. But he sways so much. This one lady comes up to him about this one person, which there's going to be casualties. And that completely changes your thoughts about everything. It just... And it also bugs me that everyone hates the Avengers. And it's hard to make this argument, which is what I was talking about, because everyone's mad about Sokovia. And they're mad because people died while the Avengers were trying to save the world. But the only thing is the Avengers made Ultron in the first place. So this really is completely the Avengers' fault. But at the same time, did everyone just want the Avengers to not go to Sokovia? Is that what they rather have done? I don't understand. Like, I get maybe these people, and especially the main antagonist as well, because he's also mad at the same thing. I get they're obviously just projecting their hate and want of revenge on people as their characters, but at the same time, would they have preferred the Avengers to not go at all? Is that what they want? It just bothers me so much, and that, like, the Avengers feed into that so much.
Well, that's what I find so compelling about this story is that there isn't a right or wrong. Like there really, really isn't. You can argue both sides, and so I like when the characters are arguing both sides, but they do it with their words. And I wish it echoed throughout the rest of the movie and everything they did. But then there are scenes like when Cap goes to get Bucky, and then Bucky escapes, and they chase Bucky, and Black Panther gets involved. Like that sequence is fun looking. But this time around, in my second viewing, it really bothered me because I was like, this is valuable screen time, and it's just a chase sequence. And I wish that this sequence was more important. And I get that, they're I don't know, they're doing justice to finally finding Bucky. That's the first time we see him in the movie for real. But it just seemed like it was going on way too long when there's like, I don't know, there's more important stuff to be dealing with right now. And that sequence went on too long for me this time around, and I wish they would have tackled more important things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like they do argue about it, but again, it's only for like 5 seconds. They don't get into the deep actual aspects of the argument and just go deeper than, okay, this person died. What do we think about that? What is the greater good here? And instead of actually talking that out, they're just like, no, this is the greater good, this is the greater good, let's believe that. And I really just wish, it doesn't even have to be when it's first brought up, but at some other point in the movie, like after the Accords have been signed for a while or something, just to like actually think about it more or talk about it. And I get that's not what this kind of movie is, but that still just bothers me. Because
I think it's like the idea that, to carry out the argument that they have, the conversation that they have, to carry out those actions and their beliefs, what it translates to is characters need to make decisions that have a heavy cost. They pay a high price for their beliefs. And I feel like throughout the movie, after that initial conversation where they don't agree on signing the Accords, they continually do things that have costs, but they're not high. They're pretty low. He gets his shield taken away, but he's not imprisoned. Tony even says, there's lines in there to justify all these things. She's like, Wilson says, that's cold. You're taking our gear. And Tony says, it's warmer than a jail cell. So like, they're pulling strings for each other. They're still friends, but it's just like, yeah, there should be things that happen that demonstrate that they're willing to do whatever it takes to do what they believe in at any cost. But there are low costs throughout the whole movie. Nobody really pays that high of a cost. And the argument in the movie is that the biggest cost they pay is that the Avengers get broken up. But in this 13 movie long franchise, and it's not stopping anytime soon, we all just know that that's not the case. Like literally the 4th Avengers movie is planned. Right. It's like announced, it's going to happen. We know that any rift between them is not going to last. So the price should have been something else, something really tangible just something tangible that we could experience with those characters. And
kind of back to the fact, like the idea that this movie is it's both a Bucky movie and a Civil War movie. We've kind of hinted at this so far, but it just bothers me so much that the third act devolves into just Tony hating Bucky. After all of this movie, everything that happens, that's the icing on the cake, what really does it. And I get why Tony would be mad. Obviously, anyone would be mad about that. I just wish instead, because it's Tony getting angry at Bucky and then Cap is just siding with Bucky, I wish it really would have genuinely been Tony hating Captain America for some reason. I don't know what.
Yeah.
I don't know what action one of them could have done to do this. But I don't like that it's just Tony fighting through Captain America, not really wanting to hurt him. He just wants to get him out of the way to kill Bucky. That's just so... Bucky's barely around, like we've been saying. He's just in Captain America movies, really. And that's not what this Civil War should have been. It should have been truly Tony hating Captain America for some deep ideological reason, not because his parents died.
I agree. I mean, I do like the sequence, and I think it is rich with... I think it's really conflicting to watch that scene for me. Like, That's how I feel. I feel so conflicted. Like, there's no one to root for. I just have to watch it unfold, and I feel at odds, and I feel conflicted. And I think that is really rich and interesting. But I definitely agree with you. I think that belongs in a different movie. I think the end of this movie should have been a civil war. Like, doesn't it make so much more sense that what's his name? Zemo. Zemo.
Yeah.
that wouldn't it make so much more sense for Zemo to want the Accords to happen, because that's what's going to tear them apart, instead of this digging up of the past and this elaborate scheme to put them against each other? Like, the Accords would have done that by themselves if you would have pushed on that, if you would have created crazy world events that made them choose between fighting alongside the government and letting them choose when they get called out, or letting the Avengers sort of decide by themselves. Like, that rift alone is what could have teared them apart. And that's what we're all invested in seeing. That's what we paid money to see the movie, is we want to see the Avengers fight each other because of their different views. But instead, he comes up with this plan that only puts Captain America against Iron Man instead of everybody against everybody. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I like it, but it's the ending of a different movie.
Yeah. So, while I'm going to bring up Batman vs. Superman, I still think this movie presented itself obviously much better than Batman vs. Superman did in a lot of different ways.
Much better.
Of course. But I think it has almost the same exact flaw as Batman vs. Superman. Like we've said, it's trying to be two different movies. But not just that, the fact that it brings up these huge, big thinking ideas that could really present like a good lesson learned, and or not even learned within this movie, just present these huge, big ideas and bring out the like specific aspects of each idea. And I mean, I still understand this is a Marvel movie, and that's not really what they're going for. They want that action in there, and we want that action in there. But I think some of the action in this movie, you still could have had that airport scene. You still could have had all the big action scenes. Just remove some of the other fluff action scenes, I suppose, and put in these bigger ideas. And obviously take out the Bucky part we're talking about and stick that in its own movie where it belongs. And it could have been a much better movie, instead of being half presenting these big ideas, half we're just going to fight it out. And then this is a little different than Batman vs. Superman, because I think the only real difference between the two movies they were trying to have was thinking versus action, while this is kind of Civil War versus Captain America movie. Like, those are the two different kinds it should have been. And so I think they should have taken out the Bucky, that fluff action, and put in more thinking, and be less of two movies and just be this one, like, Civil War. I mean, I guess that's what we've been hinting at this whole time, but...
Yeah. And I think and I hope that we're going to see, what this movie has started in Phase 3 echo throughout the rest of Phase 3. Like, I really hope that they deal with all of the things that happen, and then in that way we feel the stakes of what has been presented here. But it's just unfortunate that it's not all within that first movie. And I guess it's sort of the buy with the MCU. You sort of agreed to watching stories unfold over several movies. So I really hope that it doesn't end here, and we see these characters on the run, or we see them still conflicted, and it's kind of like, this is all like the first act of the epic Avengers Infinity War, which is what this whole thing has been, the entire MCU has been building towards. So I don't know, it's both a good and a bad thing that they're sort of building this story over an entire phase, and this is just the beginning. But it's also kind of a bummer that these movies can't be legit standalone movies. You do need to invest in all of the movies, which is a lot.
Yeah. And another point, because I've kind of been bringing this up for a few MCU movies since Phase 1 really, is that no one's really died yet. And if they have died, they've either just been in that one movie, or they have died and come back either within that same movie or like not far after. And I think this would have been the perfect movie, like we were saying, to raise the stakes and to really because someone dying because of a decision they would have made, someone that's been in the movies for a while now would have just really made this movie stronger. It would have made the emotional ties better. Just all of those things would have been there, I think, if someone died in this movie. And I think what they're doing is they want everyone to be there. Obviously, at least make it to Infinity Wars, because that's really what we all want.
Then it'll just be a death fest and everybody will die.
Right. But then it kind of feels like they're just dragging on to get to Infinity War. It's like there's a lot of fluff here that you can cut out to get into Infinity War, where if that's where you really want your stakes, you already need stakes in your movies. That's like what people want. That's what this story needs, I think. And if you're dragging, like, if you're waiting to use your stakes until that Infinity War, bring it closer. If not, you're going to, like, I think someone should have died in this movie. I don't know who, I don't know what, but just a choice that would have made someone die because of the Accords earlier in the movie, I think would have made the story and the plot points of this movie much better than what it was instead.
And the directors have talked about why they didn't kill anyone, and they have very specific reasons why they didn't. And I honestly, like, I've heard them say it, and I agree to a certain extent that it's like a device that if you overuse, obviously it loses its impact, kind of like Game of Thrones. I mean, I hate to take a jab at them, but I agree with any sort of storytelling device. If you overuse it, then it's going to lose its impact. But to your point, death hasn't really been overused in the MCU yet. You know, a death in this movie would have been, I think it would have made a big impact. And I think they argue that it would have been cheap, like just an easy way to create stakes. But I still think it would have been really effective. I agree with you. I think a death in this movie would have been epic.
Yeah.
Because there hasn't really been one yet. And to see one of these 10 characters who are fighting each other, to see one of them go would have been nuts. So
yeah. And I mean, I think it's been underused, just like, because every time someone dies, you just expect them to come back. So I specifically think either Captain or Tony sticking to their guns essentially and making the choice that they made, and then someone dying because of those decisions, I think really would have made this movie, because it's not, I don't just want a death. Like, I don't want someone just to die. I want, because of,
make it count.
Yeah, because of their decisions they have made and because of the difference they have, then someone dies because of it, and then one of them's really angry at the other. I think that would have been, because I agree, we don't want to overuse death just to, like, hit the emotional points, but I think this movie really just called for it. I think maybe it's not necessary, but I don't think it would have been overusing it if you used that device in this movie.
Yeah.
And then I just have some smaller points, but
yeah, me too.
It's not really that big of a deal because it's
stuck.
Like it's an action movie, it's a superhero movie, but there are just some points where they are just, like, so unrealistic it would take me out of the movie for a few seconds. Like, I mean, I get we're watching people in iron suits flying around, I understand, but there's one scene where a grenade's thrown into a tank and it's literally ticking and it takes 10 seconds for it to explode. I was like, come on, really? That's ridiculous. But then there are so many times in the movie where they jump or fall from ridiculous heights and they're still human. Captain America is human. Most of the people in this movie are human beings, and they just get up and start running again. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
That cap fall in the first part of the movie is brutal.
I know.
It's brutal, but he's not really human.
He is human. He's like the strongest, fastest, he's not superhuman though. I guess he is, but he's not a superhero. He's like he doesn't have any special powers. He's just the maxed out human you could be. And I'm sorry, if you fall from 7 stories, I think you're still gonna get hurt.
Yeah, but I think this is a slippery slope.
I agree, but it's still
a conversation of what they can and can't do.
And the amount of times he gets punched in the face by an iron, one of the strongest metals in the world, in the face. It's insane.
That's funny. A thing that took me out of it this time around was definitely, why is Ant-Man here?
How dare you?
I mean, I love Paul, and his presence is warm welcomed, and it's really fun. But it kind of undoes his movie. Like, straight up, Captain says, we're outside the law on this one. So if you do this, you're going to be a wanted man. And he says, what else is new? Instead of saying, well, I spent a whole movie deciding that I wasn't going to do that for the sake of my daughter. It was literally his whole movie. And he decides right then and there, yeah, let's do it. And it just bums me out. Like, I wish there's no time for it, but I wish he could have been more conflicted and at least have said, like, I can't do it, my daughter, I can't do it, but you're Captain America. And this cause seems worth it. Like, if they explained it to him and he was like, oh, we have a chance to stop 8 terrible Winter Soldiers, well, yeah, that's worth it. But we don't even get that. It's just like this funny quip.
Yeah.
And it bugged me.
Well, I'm sure they did explain. I mean, I'm sure it happened off screen, but I agree. I think that would have been nice to have on screen. Because, I mean, obviously the guy who recruited him, Falcon, is going to explain why they're fighting. It's not just going to be like, hey, you want to come fight? And he's, sure.
Yeah.
But I agree, because we don't know for sure. That would have been a nice conversation on screen.
Mm-hmm. But it's fine. Whatever.
I know.
Dude, though, we've said all this stuff. I love this movie. I really like the MCU, and this is not one of the worst ones they've ever made. You know, I like how complex it is. I like that it's rich enough for us to have this conversation. Like, it's so fun.
See, I agree. I really like the MCU as well, which is why I criticize this movie so much, because I think it could have been better, and I don't want them to keep just staying right here at this level. I want them to rise and do something better, something they haven't done yet. And so, because...
at this point, I agree that at this point we definitely need to be, like, raising the bar, because we're getting to a point where they could really start to slide into just being content with creating similar movies again and again. Right.
So, I mean, that's why. It's not because I hate the movies. I think these are always fun, and they bring a lot to the table. I just, at the point they're at, like you said, I just want them to raise the bar and keep going.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, though. It's still a really fun movie, and I wouldn't tell anyone to not watch it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, the airport scene is so good. It's so fun, man. The airport scene is so fun.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, to see all those characters together, it's so fun.
Yeah.
Should we do it? Should we topic time?
Yeah, I'm about Civil War out.
I have like 4 questions.
No, MCU sucks. We're done. Podcast's over.
No,
we're done.
That's not true. You're a liar. Civil War, you and me.
Let's do it. You're Cap. I'm Tony.
All right. Okay. Let's like speed round. 4 questions. Here we go. What's your least favorite and your favorite thing about the MCU?
I mean, kind of just what we've been talking about this movie. My least favorite is just how they haven't raised the stakes yet. How I think these movies could be a little deeper than they are, even though they still... I understand that they want to focus on the action, but I think they could be a little deeper. Favorite thing is just how well they've developed these characters, and that they're so fun and so different from one another. It's awesome to see them get together and do the things they do.
I agree. Those are good points. My favorite thing is the characters. I love seeing all the characters together, and they have so many of them now. And I like that Marvel is like not afraid to dig up the weirdest and off-book characters there are and make them awesome. My least favorite thing is that they don't own all of their characters.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's another good point.
It is, and it's not really their fault. Kind of it is. They sold them in the 90s.
They sold
to get out
out
of bankruptcy, which is a bummer. But yeah, I'm bummed that they don't have X-Men. They don't have Fantastic Four.
And they technically don't have SpiderMan. So.
Yeah, it's a dumb loophole. Okay. What future MCU movie are you most excited for?
I mean, Infinity Wars. I want to finally get there and see what it's all about.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
That's a good one. Don't like that it's 1 and 2. I wish it was just 1.
Oh, no. It's not anymore.
Oh, okay. Good. Perfect.
Yeah, it's just Infinity War is 3, and then there's a 4th movie set.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
So, wish granted. My answer is probably the same. I mean, I'm pumped for Doctor Strange. I'm pumped for all of them, to be honest.
Course,
but I think Captain Marvel's going to be great. I think it's going to be awesome to see Brie Larson. I'm nervous about SpiderMan.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably most excited for Infinity War. That's a good answer.
Thank you.
All right. What do you think about MCU TV?
I hate TV. You already know this. I don't know.
Okay.
From what I've seen, it looks fun and cool, but I'm just not... TV's too much for me. It's too much time.
It's an investment.
And the production quality is okay.
All right. Well, the Netflix stuff is vastly superior to any other MCU TV thing.
That's true.
The MCU stuff, like quality-wise, it's awesome. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, really great. I haven't seen Luke Cage yet because at this point, I've seen 3 seasons of the Netflix show. I've seen 2.5 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's just a lot. It's just a lot of content.
Yeah.
And I feel like the MCU TV stuff is going to start to feel the way the comics do. There's just no way eventually it's going to feel like there's no way you can watch it all. And there's no way you can catch up to it.
Right.
So, but in that sense, I also like that it exists out there. And they're eventually like the TV shows are going to be the comics. And people are going to be like, well, in the TV show, this character did that. So,
Yeah.
It's kind of fun that it exists, but it's getting to a point where it feels a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I'm super pumped for The Defenders on Netflix. I think that's going to be really cool. And I don't care that the TV show characters and the movie characters don't interact. I don't need that. A lot of people want that and are pissed that it doesn't happen, but keep them separate. I don't care. I think that's fine.
I don't care that much, but I think it would be cool, I suppose, if it did happen.
It would
but
be.
I don't.
No, it would be for sure. But I'm not like begging for that to happen.
Yeah.
All right, last question. We can wrap this thing up. It's just, I just wrote Doctor Strange ? Are you excited about Doctor Strange?
I don't know. I don't feel I'm as excited as most people, but
Okay.
I don't see why I wouldn't see it.
Yeah. I'm both excited and nervous about the introduction of like hardcore legit magic.
Legit magic.
Like how does that change how does it not change everything about the MCU? It's magic.
You know,
Like will it will it forever change? It's like this obviously this big power. Couldn't you go back and say, well, what about in this scenario or in the future? What about in this scenario? Can't we just magic that? It's this huge thing they're introducing, and I'm nervous that it's going to ruin everything.
Well, I mean,
but I'm super pumped to see Cumberbatch and everything.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, there's already kind of magic from Thor, and then, I mean, we're already doing space stuff. I get that that's not magic, but I feel like magic will still have limitations, just like sci-fi stuff will have limitations.
Yeah, I hope it does. Yeah.
Because otherwise...
I hope they handle it really well.
Yeah, otherwise it would just be ridiculous. Like, oh, we could have magicked that. I think it'll have limitations for sure.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
Otherwise, he will be, as they call them, OP.
What is OP?
Stands overpowered. Gamer terms. Hashtag nerd for life.
Those were it. Those were my 4 MCU questions. Eventually, I think we could have a longer conversation about the MCU. So this could be, I'll label it MCU Volume 1.
1 of 5.
Oh, I could do MCU Phase 1.
That's true.
Nah, I'll do Volume 1. That would be confusing.
Yeah.
People will think we're only talking about MCU Phase 1.
But we're not.
We're not, no.
It's just the first phase of all of our MCU talks.
I feel pretty nerdy right now. We spent an hour talking about Civil War, and I had so much to say.
I feel great, so can't bring me down. Nothing's gonna break my stride. Nothing's gonna. Yeah, that was him before he was Captain America. You know what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much for doing that. That makes me so happy. And people are probably going to be confused.
But that's fine.
Just just give your good friend Chris Evans a Google and check out one of his first roles, circa 2001. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Not another one.
Oh, man. All right. Let me bust out this checklist so we can send these people on their Halloween way.
Let's do it.
One second. Looking for it. Where is it? All right. So thanks for listening, everybody. Next week, we are going to be talking about Interstellar to honor Arrival, which is coming out soon. So check that out and hit us up next week, and you can listen along. Let us know what your favorite MCU movie is. You can tweet at us. I'm at Joshua Guzemi. Coleman's at
Cole Tailored.
And make sure to use the hashtag Afterthoughts Podcast. That'll make it really easy for us to find it. You can check out our Halloween mini episode. That link will be in the description. We talk about our favorite scary movies. And if there's ever a week where you haven't seen a movie that we're talking about and you just want to listen to the topic, you can go straight to the topic, and the timestamp will always be in the description. Yeah, and if you want to support the podcast, the two best things you can do are to give us a review on iTunes. That really helps promote us. It gets us in the eyes in front of new listeners. It'll help us rise through the ranks of iTunes. And you can share it with a friend. That would be great. Let us think of somebody that would like this podcast and send us their way. Yeah. I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's really fun to get to do this podcast, and we're so grateful for the listeners that we have. We just want some more.
Yeah. But thanks, guys. Yeah. We really appreciate it. We love doing this. Love talking movies. Glad y'all are listening. Thanks.
Have a happy Halloween. Be safe, have fun.
Watch scary movies. Tell us what you think about them.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see y'all next week.
See y'all.